We need a roll call?
Mayor Cowie,
Here.
Chairman Grumhouse,
Here.
Alderman Novit,
Here.
Alderman Widman,
Here.
Alderman Moore,
Here.
Alderman Morsch,
Here.
Alderman Schoenhyder,
Here.
Alderman Luby,
Here.
Alderman Palmer.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. First item on the agenda, consideration of the minutes from the Finance Committee meeting held on November 15th. Any questions or comments or edits?
Motion to approve?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, our favorite topics, capital equipment, trucks, et cetera.
Trucks.
Take it over,
Absolutely.
Michael.
We love talking about trucks. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Honorable Mayor, members of the Finance Committee. This evening, staff is pleased to present next fiscal year's proposed capital equipment. In the past years, we have typically reviewed these items with you at the November 15th budget meeting. We're a little bit late this year. It took us a little bit longer to get through our own internal process. This presentation we just presented at the Public Works Committee meeting prior to this Finance meeting, so we will take you through the same presentation. Very quickly, to give some background, again, the fleet size, we have 410 numbered pieces of equipment in the city's fleet. 250 of them are rolling stock. All are accounted for in your spreadsheet that is in your packet, the Excel spreadsheet. The one exception are the fire engines. The fire engines are not budgeted in our capital equipment account. They are, however, in the Planet Capital Program, so whether it's buildings, bridges, street overlay program, capital equipment, they're all coming out of the same account. They're all competing for the same dollars. The process internally, we begin our review, myself and Dave DeMarco, who's here this evening. Dave is our fleet maintenance supervisor. He and I begin our review in September. We develop a draft list. Then we compare them with the standards that we have developed for all the different vehicles we have. For example, garbage trucks, typically we will run for 15 years or 24,000 hours. All the diesel equipments we run based on hours. The gas vehicles we run based on miles. So we have standards for those. We compare those items to our CFA, which is a computerized fleet analysis system. It's basically the software program that our fleet maintenance section has had for a good 12 or 13 years. It is simply a database that has all of our repair orders entered. We can query the data any way. We can query it by the department, by the section, by the fund, by the type of repairs, and we're able then to do a simple analysis of what are these vehicles costing us, et cetera. We will then take our recommendations and review them with the internal fleet committee that is made up of staff from various departments, and then at that point we present the list to the departments before us bringing it to you, and that is where we are at in the process. We review it then with Public Works and Finance committees. We then develop the specifications. It is important to us that we retain the standardization that we have now finally achieved. So for example, all of our pickup trucks, one-ton dump trucks, and police cars, they're all Chevrolets. We've had very good luck with the Impala squad cars. We've had very good luck with the Duramax and the Allison engine and transmissions in our pickups. And that standardization not only helps us with parts purchasing, but also all of our training of our floor mechanics. We then will bid out all of the items, except obviously those that are state bid. Those that are state bid, we're able to purchase off simply because the state has done the bidding for us. We then will bring those bids to City Council for their approval for your approval for us to purchase. Key points, past city councils have requested that we have developed a similar budget for each year. They do not, in past, councils have not wanted to see the peaks and valley. They didn't want to see 900,000 one year, 200,000 the next year. So when you look at your attached spreadsheet, our numbers are hovering, especially in the general fund, right around 600 a year. Parks, Forestry, Rec is 150 a year. Water does fluctuate. No depreciation. We used to have depreciation. We had a capital equipment reserve fund up through April of 2007. The audit committee at that point met, and the fund had built up probably to $800,000 or $900,000. That fund was there specifically for if we had vehicles that went down, they caught fire, we had an emergency purchase. dollars were there. Those dollars were then transferred in April of '07 to the capital fund, so we at this point are, as I mentioned, on the same playing field with all other capital purchases in the city. We receive trade-in values. At the same time, we entertain any private bids to purchase vehicles, so we will take the highest value. We'll then typically seek council approval to purchase these items in spring or summer. This year, the one exception is we'll be coming to you at your next meeting in January to request purchase for some of our larger dump trucks that this year, the ones that we've ordered, we've had some long delays on. And we want to make sure with the contract expiring in February that we're able to get under the deadline and order those trucks. With that then, included in your packet are the capital equipment replacement forms. We developed these last fiscal year. This year we've added a couple additional questions that for ourselves, it helps us review what the issues are with each vehicle. I'm happy to take you through each vehicle and discuss it if you'd like. But again, the information that's presented, not only throughout your packet, gives you some good background information as far as not only when the truck was put into service or the car, what its average usage is, its life-to-date hours or miles, and then how much, most importantly, how much we're spending on the vehicle. So for example, this first truck, we have spent life-to-date, although it was put into service in April of 1999, spent over $120,000 on it, which was a red flag to us. We've had transmission issues with it, some hydraulic issues with it, and it is on the list for next year. This is one of 3 trucks that we'll be asking your approval next month, not to spend any dollars, but to simply allow us to go ahead and order the chassis through the state bid process. The state bid process this year, to give you some very quick background information, with International, we began talking to them in February. They did not have a contract, International did not have a contract with the state nor the Toll Road Authority. They didn't have a contract with either one until June. So we brought then to you in July our request to purchase the 3 plow trucks. We have done that, and to date, none of them have been received or put into service. So International had some delays at their factory. Obviously, the delay of locking up a contract with International, between the state and International, took some time. We don't want to run into that next year, and we are simply in January going to come back and say, these 3 chassis are off of state bid. Can we have your permission to order them? We won't spend any money until after May 1, but we at least want to get the orders in before the contract runs out in February. When it runs out in February, it's a crapshoot as to whether or not the state will sign again, when they'll sign again, and then you obviously have a price increase too.
Are these 2011s?
They are, yes.
So no matter if we get the contract in January, it goes in, and they don't make them until July, they're going to be
They will be
11s.
2011s because the factory breaks down in end of July, beginning of August.
Okay.
Is when they, for International, when they switch over to the following
And you
model
don't see
year.
any big improvements coming in the trucks?
No, the one issue we had to deal with this year is that with the larger trucks, the new emission standards for 2010, and there was a filter issue, and that is what is delayed, one of the 2 issues that has delayed delivery of these trucks, so.
So these are under the new 2010 on-road engine standards, not the 2011 off-road?
This is, correct, 2010 on-road, yes, yes,
So these are the new engines.
correct, with the new emissions. The 4 police cars that are listed in this packet, police department runs 11 marked police cars plus 1 Tahoe. We have for many years been on a cycle to replace these cars every other year. When we looked at the mileage and asked the police department to try and spread that mileage out evenly, we were able to bring it down to replacing 4 per year. The 4 that we just received last week are going into service since these have hit 100,000 miles. We will take the police cars out of service, give them to community development and engineering. We'll run them typically for another 15 to 20,000 miles, and we've had some history of when it hits that point, we go through transmissions. So we get rid of these right at that 120,000 mile mark before transmissions go on them.
Mike, on the police vehicles, I'm not sure if I'm reading this correctly, but, for example, the first one has life-to-date miles of only 50,000.
Correct. Yeah, and this is
And
simply,
the costs of maintenance seem to be pretty low
right,
to date. Actually, the second one is about 68, also low cost of maintenance. And the last one is about 50,000, also very low cost of maintenance. So what is the, whatever, why have those reached the crossover point to transfer them out?
this is simply us noting that next year at this time, they will, within 1 year from this point, they will have hit that 100,000 mile mark. And that is what we have, our past history has shown, is a good time for us to take them out of the police department operation and run them at a much easier, slower use than PD.
We're ordering them ahead of time, so we have them when they're ready, because they do take the time. In fact, last time we bought a couple of extras and had them in the garage, waiting to go into service when they were needed.
Why has Unit 10 been such a disaster from a maintenance perspective?
Accidents are counted in the maintenance.
That's one of them, the accident.
Is that the higher one?
Must have had like 3
Correct.
accidents.
Car 10, yeah.
Yeah.
got-
Why doesn't,
yeah.
why does the 8,210 not equal the 5,405 if there's, the other two are zeros?
That is a good question. When do we put this one into service? Yeah, that it's.
But the whole life is there, 3 years, huh?
First one doesn't add up either. None of them add
Oh,
up.
that's right, I'm sorry. It includes, your life-to-date cost is life-to-date as of last week, so FY11. So we simply broke
Okay.
down FY10, 9, and 8.
It's projected.
The delta is your FY11, what we've spent since May 1 for this fiscal year.
Mike, I've noticed quite a few communities have moved to alternative vehicles for police vehicles. I mean, this has kind of been the standard for 30 years. You know, obviously, the world has changed in terms of the need for equipment.
Right.
Have we looked at that issue and looked
We,
at some alternative fuel vehicles and other?
Yeah, we are, and actually, Ford is coming out with a brand-new platform, as well as Chevrolet. Chevrolet's bringing back the Caprice, they've got 1 more year on the Impalas. Ford is more of a crossover vehicle. They're gonna do away with their Crown Victorias. So, one of the things we're gonna look at as well, is I mentioned, they've got 12 marked vehicles. The 12th one is a Tahoe. The Tahoe that they have is running around the clock, and we're gonna look at the costs, the maintenance costs, and compare it to the Impalas. With a Tahoe, it's on a truck platform, so everything you have, alternator, transmission, brakes, everything is bigger, heavier duty, and is so far proven to be very good. So we're gonna take that into account in our analysis as well.
Yeah, because obviously the technology over the last couple of years, both Chevrolet and Ford have made tremendous improvements in the
Strides, yes,
vehicles. The engines are completely different. Fuel efficiency is completely different for the
Right.
newer models than it is. This is really 10-year-old technology.
It is.
So,
Now, one
you know, it
challenge
might be
that we
worth
will-
looking at investigating that
But
before we
they're
pull the
changing all
trigger
these
on it.
Impalas too, aren't they?
We're
all
going
new.
to go 1 more year with the Impalas because of this. The cage that separates the front seat to the back seat, the light bars, the computer equipment,
Oh, that's
the
right.
pedestals,
You can reuse
everything
it.
is moved out of one car and put into another. And we have used this equipment for many years now. So when we make that jump to go with either the crossover or the new Caprice, we're going to have that added expense of a wider light bar, we're going to have to get a new cage, a new rack. All
That's
of that
about
will
6,000 or
be-
7,000, isn't it? To change all that to a new model?
No, it's not that. It's
Not
prob-
that
it's
much.
probably closer to 4. Right now, we're spending about 1,500 per car to change it over. But when we've got to purchase those items, it's probably 4 per car.
We also talked about the fact that the Tahoes cost, what, 35,000 as opposed to 26? But they
The
go for
Tahoes, we could probably get
200,000
off
miles?
state bid around 28 or 30, and these are at about 23, 24.
So about 5,000 more,
Right,
but you can get 200,000 miles out of them instead of 100?
exactly. And
So
that's,
that was,
we wanted, again, to really run one. The one that we have, I think, was purchased in the summer of 2008, and we want to be able to come back to you with some real numbers and say either it has worked or it hasn't. So. The police department runs 7 unmarked police cars. They are used for investigation purposes, court runs, training down in southern Illinois. They have 2 vehicles this year. We have not replaced their unmarks for at least 2, I believe 3 years. But this one in particular is one that has been bothering them to death with this mold issue that is in the AC heater core. And they would like to get rid of it, as well as the following unit, the Nissan, which they actually took possession from a crime incident. So the next unit didn't cost the city any money.
Are you gonna look at alternative type vehicles for these?
Yes, and actually what typically happens is the police chief requests approval from the mayor and the finance committee chairman to be able to go out to dealerships and buy vehicles, used vehicles. They do not want to buy vehicles that look like police cars. They don't want to buy Impalas or Crown Vics. These are unmarked vehicles that serve a purpose, so they typically will ask for your approval to do that. The next 2 items are the single axle 5-yard dump trucks. Again, very similar to the first truck that we put up on the screen. This is the second and third truck that we would be asking for your approval next month to order through the state bid process. These are used primarily by our streets department, obviously for all the plowing, but they're used with all the other departments, water, sewer, with the main breaks, our parks and forestry section, and they're hauling wood chips, dirt, et cetera. So these 2 trucks have definitely hit their point, being almost 20 years old when they are replaced. The last of the Ford L8000s. The Parks and Forestry Department has requested a new piece of equipment, a core aerator, for all the parks. They did secure or ask for a quote to have an outside contractor do the coring for them. We had a good discussion with some good ideas at the Public Works Committee meeting, asking us to talk to some of the surrounding golf courses to see if we can borrow a piece similar to this. This is a piece that is used twice a year, probably 2 weeks at a time, and they have been recently borrowing golf courses, Deer Path Golf Courses unit, which they have broke down 3 times this fall. So we did speak to Lake Bluff Park District and asked if we could share with them, although initially they were up for the idea. When it went up the rank, they said no thank you. So we will talk to some of the surrounding golf courses and see if we can team up with them and possibly not need to purchase one or share one.
So does Deer Path Golf Course have one or not have
Deer
one?
Path Golf Course has one that they use. They've got a John Deere unit that goes on the back of their tractors, and they aerate in the spring and fall. Our Parks and Forestry section borrowed it this fall to do all the parks, and 3 times they called saying it's broken down. So
What does the high school do for their fields? Don't they have one as well?
yeah, that's actually a good point. We'll talk to them as well.
Yeah, because I know they aerate them out there.
Yep.
Another question on the dump truck or the hook lift. They're only $5,000 apart. One's a tandem axle, and
Yeah,
I mean, is one a better one to have? Why are we
Well,
buying a dump truck?
the first one, the tandem axle, has the hook lift on it. The 2 prior, this one, 488 and 486, are fixed dump trucks. They do not have the hook lift system on them. So we would simply be replacing them with fixed dump trucks.
Why? Because, I mean, the other ones are so versatile, as we discussed earlier.
With the tandems, for our operation, having 2 tandem axle trucks, we're fine with that. We've looked at the possibility of expanding and going with a couple larger ones, but For the number of cul-de-sacs in this town when we're plowing, two larger tandem axle trucks are fine to get the mains. These will go into the neighborhoods, and we actually need a shorter wheelbase truck, so these two do not have the hook lift. On the first one, the hook lift, we're simply going to refurbish. We're gonna buy a new chassis, we're gonna send it out, have the hook lift removed, refurbished. We'll reuse the V-box spreader, we'll reuse the plow, we'll reuse the dump body. It'll simply be a chassis with a new hydraulic and plow system. These will be a full, complete unit.
That's why they're so
Stainless steel
expensive.
dump body. We will reuse the plow on these two units, the ones we currently have. The Parks and Forestry sections use three groundsmasters to maintain all of the parkways and open space. We also use these groundsmasters in the wintertime to broom off the snow at both the east and west side train stations, as well as the ice pond that they are working on at the moment as we speak. The groundsmasters, you can, with this one, have really begun to cause, especially this one, some problems with the PTO pump and some of the hydraulic issues. The interesting thing with this is that Toro for many years has made this model. We have a cab that goes on it, and Toro is no longer, as of this year, making the 328D, so we're going to need to purchase a new model, which will mean a need for a new cab. But again, a very versatile piece of equipment. In the fall, as you can see, it has a leaf blower on it. It's used to blow all the leaves in the parks. Probably one of the final yellow pieces of equipment we have in the city. For many years, this was our paint scheme with all the city vehicles. This truck was actually used by our water and sewer section for many years. 2 years ago, it was transferred over to Parks and Forestry. It is simply a heavy-duty one-ton truck. We did talk at the Public Works Committee of making this truck and the truck after this the ability, or giving them the ability to do more in the wintertime. In the wintertime, this will simply just haul snow at the parking lots. We are going to expand its role and put a plow on it so we can plow with it as well.
So this would be part of the overall plowing?
Correct, correct. It, as I was saying at the Public Works Committee, it is frustrating with this truck and the next one at times where if we have vehicles that go down in the winter, and we obviously do, and we look out into the garage to see is there a spare, and these two are sitting here, you can't use them. There's no plow on them. They're not set up to plow. So one of the changes we made probably, I would say 5 to 6 years ago, is that 3/4 ton trucks and up, we have done two things. Number one, put diesel engines in them, and two, have tried our best to outfit them with a plow. And the same goes for the last item, the last Dodge per se that we have in our fleet. Again, trying to standardize. We had 3 others. This is the 4th one that we have begun to have some transmission issues with. The other ones we had horrible transmission issues with. But this one is used by our water sewer section for not only the meter reads that are done monthly, but all the valve turning that we do, and it also goes on all of our main breaks. We again would upfit this one with a larger truck with a plow. So that concludes it. I hopefully went through quick enough to give you a sense of what we're proposing for next fiscal year.
Are the budget amounts that are in here, are those net? Is that after the residual?
That is gross.
That is gross.
Typically there is, not knowing what we will receive for trade-in values or outright purchases of these, we will typically budget a gross amount, and the dollars then simply go back to the capital fund.
Any other questions or comments from Finance Committee? Thank you, Michael, as always, very thorough, and we appreciate the detail and quality of the trucks. Next item on the agenda, organizational and community goals. Bob, I guess you're taking this one.
switch the, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Finance Committee. Starting last year, staff presented at this time to the City Council and to the community what we saw were the community and priority goals of the city of Lake Forest, so that the council and the staff were certainly clear as to what are those overriding issues that we really want to stay focused on through the course of the next 12 months. And so what I'm going to go through here very quickly is just what we've identified as the community goals, and take any further input or suggestions that the council might have about any goals that we may have missed. Certainly in 2011, the 150th festivities are going to be very, very important, because you're only 150 once. And it was kicked off through the tree lighting ceremony with the lighting of the 150th sign that's now floating above Market Square. And I think you've all received in your packets a list of all the various activities that are going to be taking place over the course of 2011, and we'll be constantly updating you in the community on additional activities that various organizations will be sponsoring as we go forward. Second is the continued discussion on affordable housing, and this is actually on your regular agenda this evening with respect to the Housing Trust, and we see that this there's a number of options and opportunities that will be explored by the council and discussed by the community over the course of 2011. Item number 3, the enhancement of business districts. This is something we've been working on for a couple of years now, and I believe at one of your January meetings you'll have a report and an update from the CBD advocacy group as to what we're doing. The positive news, as Kathy can attest, is that sales tax dollars are actually up slightly, but they're moving in the right direction. We still don't know what impact Costco is going to have on our stores. It's too early to tell at this point in time, but we'll be monitoring that very closely. Susan Kelsey is getting more contacts and inquiries, and as a matter of fact, I think today had a prospective new business out looking at some stores in the city, and so we're hoping that we'll start to see movement of bringing in some additional new businesses over the course of 2011. The rail service and safety improvements, that's a goal that we started last year with the enhancements of some improvements on the west side at the west train station. This year we'll be occupied with not only continuing those discussions about potential Amtrak service and some pedestrian tunnels, but also with the recent announcement that we received the grant money that we have roughly about $1.3 million to put into the restoration and renovation of the downtown train station. The financial acumen is one that is going to be with us, I'm afraid, for a while. I'd love to say that the economy is turning around, but as we've talked about with the City Council, we still have some tough decisions ahead of us that have to be made for the upcoming FY12 budget. I'm happy to report that for the current fiscal year, FY11, the things are progressing as we had budgeted. Actually, I think revenues might be slightly up and expenses slightly down, but it's still a little too early to tell, but we're feeling pretty good about where we are in the current fiscal year. But there are some issues, and there's those issues that the council's well aware of because of our long-range financial planning that we do, and we'll continue to work on them, and we'll be talking about them in much greater detail at the Finance Committee meetings in January, February, and particularly March when we have our big budget meeting with the City Council. And then finally, the enhanced communications within the community. I think this is one we touched on briefly with the GovQA, but I think we're constantly going to be looking at ways to reach out and touch our residents in different ways and get information out to them. We're learning that the old ways of communicating with the residents, while they work for some, do not work for others, and so we're always constantly exploring ways. We do have a staff committee that's looking at social media and how we can get tweets and Facebook and all those kinds of things that, quite candidly, I don't really understand all that much myself, but we have younger, smarter staff that do. But again, recognizing that people are communicating with us in many different ways. And I think the GovQA initiative that we'll be kicking off here very shortly is also going to help out in that arena. And I think in this area, we just constantly keep in mind that despite all the communications we do, we can always communicate differently and better. Because it seems like no matter how many times or different ways that we put information out there, we're not getting that to some people, and we've got to figure out how to constantly keep the entire community base informed of what's going on in the city. So these were the big community goals that we were looking at. With respect to the priority goals, and these generally have to do more internally with staff. 2011 is going to be a very interesting year with some potential operational restructuring that's going to take place associated with early retirement incentive program that we're looking at bringing back to the council in February. That might include some restructurings of some of our operational departments and looking at doing some things very differently, possibly outsourcing, privatizing, what have you. Settler Square improvements, the staff has committed to me that the lights will be up by December 15th in Settler Square. So I'm putting that on record, and if not, then we'll have a conversation at the next city council meeting. But we've got still some additional work that needs to take place. This was really phase one of some of the improvements out there, and we have some additional streetscape work and so forth to just generally improve the pedestrian aesthetic qualities of the Settler Square area. Gorton Community Center, I'd love to say that after you pass the ordinance tonight, we'll be done with it, but quite candidly, we won't be. But that's for a lot of good reasons, because there is an awful lot of interest in Gorton Community Center. I think there's going to be a lot of excitement. We talked about the Historical Society, and there's other local groups and institutions that have recently expressed interest, and so we've got a lot of people interested now in coming back to Gorton, and probably more than we have space for, but that's a good problem to have. And I think the community is going to be very excited about where Gorton is going. I would also put in a plug now, too, that there has been a fundraiser letter that has gone out. If you didn't get one, certainly see Alderman Luby or myself, and we'll be happy to give you a fundraiser letter, because we don't want you to feel left out that you couldn't give a gift to Gorton for 2010. And then finally, we will continue with promoting green. As you know, we have a in-house staff committee, a green team as we call it, that's looking at ways for us to constantly do things differently. And then maybe I'll pass the gavel or the microphone to the mayor, because last Thursday, the city of Lake Forest was recognized for our municipal services building, and Mayor Cowie and Tom Natz were there to accept an award on the greenness of our building. So I'll turn it over to you, Mayor.
Well, thank you, Bob. I was going to bring it up in my comments for the council agenda, but I can bring it up here as well. Last Thursday, I was proud to announce that we did receive an award from the Lake County Stormwater Management Commission, and I'll just read briefly what the award was for. It said, the City of Lake Forest Municipal Services Building site is being commended because it incorporates sustainable green stormwater practices from naturalized detention areas to wetland restoration with water quality features that go above and beyond the Lake County Watershed Development Ordinance. It also goes on to state that the city is also being commended for receiving a gold LEED certification for the municipal services building. And it was quite an honor to be there. We had Tom Natz, the Director of Public Works, I think Ramesh from Engineering, Ken Magnus, Tom Cahill, and our former Alderman, Tom Swarthout, who gave a nice inspiring speech at the end of our presentation for another half hour, which was well received. But it was
his job.
But it was quite an honor, and it was nice to be recognized for the work that we did take and promote green in Lake County and in Lake Forest.
Great honor. Those are the community and priority goals. Again, I would welcome any additions that any has. As I said, as you know, there's hundreds of issues that come before the city council and the city staff in the course of the year. But we wanted to make sure that the community, the staff recognize that these are these significant strategic issues that we don't want to lose sight of with all the other day-to-day activities that we get caught up with as well, so.
Bob and Mayor, I certainly endorse the promoting green priority. I mentioned this before, and that is that we used to have but no longer have an environmental committee. And it seems to me that if we're getting awards and we have this commitment internally, I think we should reconstitute that committee so that we can get some public input and initiatives going for that. If it's that much of a priority, I think we should take the steps.
We can do that. In fact, that we can put that on our agenda. That was a committee that I was the chairman of after I left the council, appointed from the former mayor, Michael Rummel. And then as I stepped into this role, it kind of, maybe I don't know what happened to it, actually. It kind of...
It fell apart after you left your leadership.
That was it.
The vacuum.
But we need to reconstitute that. We certainly can. I think what Bob mentioned earlier, though, the staff is not stopped. Their daily, weekly, monthly, yearly routine of how we can achieve those goals. And I think the other thing that, in light of that, we want to talk about too, as we'll talk about at budget, is trying to expand our citywide recycling program to include toters, to increase the amount of recycling that we can do in the community. And obviously those are things that came out of that environmental committee, and that I think that's a very good idea. We will bring it back. And I know someone that's coming off the council here real soon that is looking for something to do.
Be careful what you ask for.
Stu, if there's a green vote, you're going to win.
You are gonna win.
John?
I think that's a great idea, and one of the things we could actually also investigate is that I believe there's committees through the schools, through the high school, the grade schools, the college, and so maybe this isn't just a city, it's a community green team that we could look at.
That's a good idea.
All right, any other questions or comments on that? Other business from the council? All right, opportunity for the public to address the finance committee on non-agenda items? Hearing none. Bob, do you want Ramesh to talk about the speed limits now, or do you want to just end early?
Sure, no, we got, he can do it in 5 minutes, and then we can do it in 5 minutes.
Good call, Dave.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the council. As we talked in the Public Works Committee, this was brought in by a resident way back in April. Alderman Morse had forwarded us that request to lower the speed limit on Western Avenue. Currently, the speed limit on Western Avenue between Illinois and Vine is 25, and then north of Illinois, all the way up to Alden, it's 30 miles per hour. And as we all know, south of Vine up to Wesley, it's 35 miles per hour. At that time, we said that the Western Avenue is under construction, so we got to wait till the construction is done, get some traffic flows, and then we'll do the speed study. As the memo says, we did conduct a speed study, and the average speed, as part of the speed study program, the Institute of Traffic Engineers, they look at the guidelines. One of the guidelines is the 85th percentile, basically the speed of average speed of vehicles going above 85% is that 28.81. That factor considered with this, what we call is a 10-mile-hour pace. Basically, the 10-mile-hour pace is the number of vehicles exceeding within that 5 miles per hour zone, the most number of vehicles. And if we average that, that comes to 23.75. When we do our speed study, we look at the conservative numbers of these two. And taking the 23.75 and then add the curb cuts we have on Western Avenue between Illinois and Alden Lane, including what we call is a high foot traffic establishment like Burger King, Joe Lasco, that can even lower it to 5 to 10%. So taking all that math into consideration, basically it drops down to around 24 to 25. The next increment, they always try to do it a 5-mile increment. It comes to 25 miles per hour. So right now, we discussed that with the Traffic Safety Committee, and right now they're recommending to keep it at 25 miles per hour, basically from Illinois all the way to Alden Lane.
I guess I was surprised that it was actually 30. I just assumed all in business district streets were 25. The one question I would have and is just certainly between Illinois, between Vine and Laurel, 25 makes all the sense in the world to me. The only question I would have is whether from Laurel to Alden, whether that should remain 25 as well.
Again, I think because of those business districts, because there's a parallel parking, we did notice, with the parallel parking, especially on the east side, on Western Avenue, or the northern business district, there are quite a few pedestrian traffic. So if we are being consistent, we said that, when we conducted our traffic study, we did put counters there.
If you went all the way down.
All
and
the way up
counted
to
down there,
Alden, right.
okay.
So we put two counters on southbound lane and two counters on northbound lane, spaced it up, and then we found out that the average speed is what we got. So
How fast is Alden? Is that 25 also?
up to, it's 30 right now up to Alden.
Alden itself, though?
Alden is a residential district, is all 25
So
right-
it's 25. and
right now.
I think, David, most people thought it was because the only sign for speed going north is where it slows down, right at Vine. It says
Right.
25, and there's not another sign. And I think coming south, people see it's posted clearly on Alden that it's 25.
Right.
And there's no change, or you don't see anything on Western, so everybody assumes it's 25.
25, right.
So I don't see any problem with doing it. You have a little range of motion in there. They won't be pulling anybody over, I don't think, for 27.
I think we were all caught by surprise that this was kind of a quirk that.
That it was 30,
existed.
yeah.
Right.
I had no idea.
I was going to say, and I think we discussed this to a certain degree, but maybe for speed limit signs in the downtown area, we could get a notation that it's 25 miles an hour in all areas of the business district. So there's no question in other areas that it's consistent, that's it. And it might help alert motorists.
Right, I think for the most part, we do have signs on Deer Path, but I think, having said that, we're not gonna put 10 signs saying 25 miles per hour. I think we'll be, we'll try to limit to like 2 signs, on each side, and space them out so that, but I think there's a confusion then it comes because south of Illinois, it becomes 30 miles per hour, and then even from Green Bay on Deer Path Avenue, Green Bay going west, it's, it's 30 in that school zone. So if we put it within the business district,
I think if you have, and I think you have it on most streets, that it's 25 as you're coming out. I mean, I agree with John. I think everyone just assumes Western's 25 because you see as you come in on Western there that it says it goes from 35 to 25, and there's
right.
And the police are always sitting there anyway, so you're always careful to get down to 25.
No.
You probably need one coming north
Right.
at Alden so that people.
Yeah, our initial plan was to put one by, going northbound, put one by Jewel and one north of Franklin, and then southbound, put one by Laurel, and then one by Westminster or something, so that it's spaced out and we are not putting too many signs.
That's helpful. I guess we'll take action at the council meeting, but thank you for doing it early. Any other items for finance? If not, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Council meeting at 7:30.